Good evening, folks. All right, for our last meeting of the year, how about that? Lovely. All right. First of all, I need to make a motion to reconvene from executive session.
I move that we, Mr. Mayor,
Yes,
move that we end executive session.
I second it.
all right, properly moved in second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Executive session has ended. Madam Clerk?
Councilmember Clanton. Here. Councilmember George Turner.
Here.
Councilmember Jasmine Cobble. Councilmember Diana Doma.
Here.
Councilmember Rob Turner. Here. Mr. Mayor, you have a quorum.
I didn't hear Jasmine Cobble.
I'm here.
All right. You stand, please, for our invocation.
This is it. That's it. Appreciate you. As we stand tonight for our invocation, I do want us to remember the Flores family and these great men and women in blue who sacrifice their life every day for us. That we pray that the Lord will comfort and strengthen that family, but also protect those that are out there protecting us. So remember them during this season and this new year that's coming in. Pray for that family. Father, we thank you for this hour, this time. We thank you again for this last meeting of the year. We thank you how you brought us from the beginning to this place today. We thank you for the presence of your Spirit. Now, Father, we ask that you continue to empower us with your knowledge, your wisdom, your presence, and your anointing. Thank you for all those that are here to be a benefit and a blessing and a solution to the problems and concerns of this city. And we honor you and we give you all the praise and glory for it. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. You seated? Thank you. Okay, folks, we're going to go to the council. We're going to go to the adoption of the city council agenda for today. Council, I am removing number 2, resolution to appoint new member of the Development Authority. Are there any changes or amendments?
Mr. Mayor,
Yes, they can acknowledge. Come on, George. Where's George?
item number 10. We don't have the necessary support document, and for other reasons, we'd like to remove that from the agenda.
Okay.
What is number 10?
Mr. Mayor.
Yes, sir.
Item number 2, is that supposed to be Rob Turner or George Turner concerning the overlay district? Because I see that I am on the steering committee, and I just wanted to ensure that this was correct.
Oh, which
Item
one?
number 3,
Oh, number 3.
resolution to establish it.
Let me see the claim.
I
thought it was Rob Turner.
It's Rob,
Rob Turner.
Yeah.
but I think it had to do with who made.
George was the one who said that he
Right.
would
I would
Just a
second.
second.
second for him to put
Okay,
it on
just
the
want to make sure.
agenda.
Okay.
So, but it's actually for Rob Turner.
Right.
His name might be in the resolution, but the
Right.
name
It is in
on
the
the front.
resolution.
Okay,
Name's
okay,
on
I
front
got
of
you.
just who put the items on.
I got you. Okay, good deal. I wish one of y'all had a different last name, man. I am telling you.
Which one?
We gonna have to, man.
Yeah, with 3 Johnsons.
Wow, okay.
Yes, 3 Johnson.
All right. Okay, are there any other changes to our council? Okay, seeing none, I'll take the approval for the agenda.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes, sir.
I move that we approve the agenda for tonight with the adjustments.
All right.
Second.
Properly moved in second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Agenda approved. Minutes for the city council meeting for December 5th. Council, I'll give you an opportunity to give a final perusal for that.
I had just one correction, and I was intending to call it in. That was a date that was incorrect on one of these. You had November 1st. It should have been November 7th.
And I'm sorry, Councilman, which one was that for? Oh, okay, you got it, Bruno. Madam
You have
Clerk,
it?
I'm sorry.
Good. All right.
November 7th meant adoption instead of November the 1st.
Yes. That was it for me.
All right, Council, anything else? All right, seeing none, I'll take a motion for the approval of the December 5th meetings with those changes.
Mr. Mayor, I make a motion that we approve the minutes with the appropriate changes.
All right. Probably
Second.
moved, do I have a second?
Second.
Probably moved in second. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? Aye. All opposed? Minutes approved. Madam Clerk.
May I have 5 speakers?
All right,
Dave Marcus and Michelle Emanuel. Yes, you are.
Good evening, everyone.
Ms. Marcus.
In advance, Merry Christmas. Ms. Cobble, I hope you recover soon and have a great Christmas. Sure enough. There were 2 things tonight that I wanted to comment on. The first is the Housing Authority. And I just find one part of the resolution establishing the Housing Authority a little funny, which is that you all are declaring that there is a need for a housing authority because there's a shortage of safe or sanitary dwelling accommodations in the city available to persons of low income. And I just don't think I realized that we need more low income, not affordable, but low income housing, and that we needed a housing authority to get Washington money and spend it as Washington money must be spent on low income housing. So I just want to express some surprise about that and also question how much low-income housing we have and affordable housing and how much we want. And would, again, I think I've said this before, urge the council to determine those numbers and then to decide what to do. That's all. The SPLOST item is not on the agenda any longer, and I'm disappointed because I was hoping you were going to use that to discuss the recommendations that the SPLOST Citizens Oversight Advisory Committee, which I chair, gave to the council. And I just want to express the hope that you will, in a work session or a council meeting, consider those recommendations and act wisely. Other than that, again, Merry Christmas, safe New Year's.
Thank you, Ms. Marcus.
Good evening. Happy holidays, happy Kwanzaa, Hanukkah, whatever you celebrate.
Good evening.
2 things. There was a lot on next door about the big lots closing. And I know you guys have nothing to do with what a landlord can charge a tenant. What I'd like to suggest is that maybe someone from the community development or CID or something have a conversation with these landlords about what's driving the price increases of the rents within the city of Stonecrest. I know we're supposed to be getting, we're getting this dealership and we're getting a QT, but that really doesn't necessarily mean, good development. We also need to get better restaurants and better retail and all of that. So keeping that in mind, that maybe someone can have that conversation with them and just ask them what's driving it, because that Big Lots used to be Home Goods, that they never had anything in there that was any good. And then there was something before that that was doing really well, and then that's gone. So now when Big Lots goes, what's going to be there? That's another empty space that we can't have people come and spend money, and we need that. We want that. The other thing is the SPLOST, which Dave addressed. I'm hopeful that you guys come to some resolution. I was on Mountain Industrial on Friday, and DeKalb County has already started paving all of that. Now, part of it is Tucker, but the majority of it near Sam's Club has already started paving significant amounts. And I haven't seen anything. I just see little patches here and there. And there were other things on next door where people were like getting their cars were being damaged by the potholes. So I'm hoping that you guys come to some resolution. We made some recommendations, look at them, talk about it, come, find something, because we have the money. We need the work to get done by the spring, or at least started, because, the whole premise of the city was to make it livable and beautiful and all those things and encourage people to live here. But the bottom line is, nobody's going to come here if there's no retail, if the streets are jacked up. So we need to work together to get something done. And hopefully, you guys can kind of put aside any egos or personal feelings, because it's really not personal. It's really about the business of the community. So thanks in advance for all you guys do.
Thank you, Ms. Randall.
Bernard Knight, Miro Cardenas, and Faye Cofield.
Mr. Mayor, City
Right.
Council, as always, it's an honor and a privilege to be here before you tonight. I'm speaking in opposition to the proposed Historic Preservation and Cultural Landmarks Commission for several reasons. Number one, this ordinance, its present form, is what state law requires. There's a certain standard format. This is what is required. And I regret to say that it is nothing like the original proposal by Councilwoman Adoma, which basically tracked the City of South Fulton ordinance. I am cognizant of the statement that Councilwoman Adoma read out at a previous meeting with her, I think, 10 bullet points of what she hoped this would accomplish. I again regret to say it will not do that. Perhaps 2 or 3 of the bullet points actually will be something that would fall within the purview of this commission. But things like entertainment venues, putting on concerts or whatever, it simply is not within the jurisdiction of this commission. We do not know what the cost of doing this would be, or how complex it would be. But I will tell you this, I have had over a decade of experience with the DeKalb County Historic Preservation Commission and their ordinance. It is a quagmire. It is a quagmire for the people, for the attorneys who have to practice, for the people who sit on the commission, a great deal of turnover. It is not exactly a mess, but it is a struggle. It is a struggle to maintain. It's a struggle to administer. And I have to believe it's very costly. I do believe that it's possible that this commission and this ordinance might be a good idea, but only if we first have a study done, say by the Carl Vinson Institute, creating an inventory of the possible buildings and structures and sites that need protection, and also coming up with an estimate of how much it would cost. Y'all have been great stewards of the public money. Y'all just approved a budget with no taxes. It's balanced. You're developing a reserve thanks to the wonderful efforts of our city manager and staff. We need to continue, y'all to continue to be good stewards. And the way you would do this is before we take the giant leap of creating this commission through this ordinance, first find out a little bit more about it, about things that at this point we're just being asked to accept on faith. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Knight.
Ms. Cardenas,
Got that right that time, didn't you?
Good evening.
Good evening.
Thank you all for the opportunity to talk with you. I think Bernie and I are going to do counterpoint. After this, I'm here to speak in favor of agenda item number 8, creation of a historic preservation ordinance. One of these, what this ordinance does is simply passes enabling legislation so that you can then have the power to create historic districts. In and of itself, the ordinance doesn't create any historic districts. It doesn't obligate the commission to ever create a historic district, and it doesn't obligate the city council or the city to administer that either. When this first came up, a lot of people said, what's the rush? Why are we doing this now? And in light of the recent demolitions of 2 historic structures on the corner of Browns Mill and Klondike Road, it seems that it's not only timely but pressing that the city does start to address the historic structures. And the power to do that rests at the local level. It doesn't rest with a national designation. This is the only protection that you can offer to your historic neighborhoods. On November 14th, I sent an email to all members of the council and key members, including the city manager and the community development director, talking about some ways that if you have reservations about this ordinance, you can get more information about it so that you can fully understand what passing it means. Historic districts are created by you all, and I hope you all will see the benefit to creating those historic districts, from economic development, tourism, community pride. Those are all benefits that the city can see from this. I provided you all with some research links. If you have not had an opportunity to fully research this, I passed on to you the name of Sarah Rogers, who is with the State Historic Preservation Office, who's willing to come in and do a presentation for the council. She's the expert at the state level who can address your concerns about what it means to actually implement a historic preservation commission or pass the ordinance. So I hope you all will see the benefit that this can offer and pass the ordinance unanimously. However, if you have reservations, I do urge you to take some more time, consult with the experts, and invite Sarah Rogers or other experts that you all identify to talk with you more about it. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, ma'am.
Good evening. I have sent each one of you an email about these trees. I know you think it's petty, but when you see the amount of trees that was taken down, you will understand what my concerns are. Also, it's been mentioned that there was no tree ordinance in DeKalb County. It was. You can take down only 5 trees. And most importantly, my complaint was filed in August or September of 2017, when Stonecrest was in fact a city, contrary to what was stated. In addition to that, my first complaint was filed with DeKalb County in 2015, at which time they issued a stop work order and instructed him not to cut down any more trees. So all of that is documented, and you do have the photographs. What I really want to talk about today, and I really have one of these why questions, and it isn't even a why question, it's a how come question. And how come every time a neighborhood becomes about 40% Black, we start hearing about low-income housing? No matter what the income is of the people that are there, no matter what the condition of the housing is there, we start hearing about low-income housing. Now, I understand that there's this thing that there's not enough low-income housing in Stonecrest. I suggest that you look at the U.S. Housing Authority map, and it will show you that the majority of concentration of low-income Section 8 housing is on the south side of DeKalb County. You don't hear Dunwoody or Brookhaven or anybody talking about low-income housing. What Brookhaven is talking about doing is making it so they give their people a grant so they can afford to live there. Now, it's deeply concerning because we do have affordable housing here. We have the most affordable housing in the metro Atlanta area, especially for single-family, middle-class neighborhoods. Even our upscale housing, if you look at places like Sandstone Estates and everything else, those houses are extremely affordable when you look at the same style house in Buckhead or Brookhaven. I have to tell you like this. I think everybody's seen Black Panther. And one of the most important things he said in Black Panther when they talked about opening up their borders is that when you open up your borders, you have to be willing to accept it. Now, if you want to make all of this low-income housing available here when DeKalb County already has a housing authority that's placing people in Stonecrest, then you have to remember that you are giving up the right for any upscale development, because everybody knows upscale development and upscale retail does not mix with low income. And the other question I want to know is, where are you planning to put this low income housing? Are you planning to put it over on Evans Mill across from Spring Lake? Are you planning on putting it on Rock Springs? Are you planning on putting it outside of Spring Lake or Stonecrest Parks? Thank you very much.
Thank you. Ms. Schofield.
Thank you, ma'am. All right, we'll move into our agenda items. Hot off the press, the resolution for approval for establishment of a housing authority for the City of Stonecrest. City Attorney. Madam City Attorney. So before you start, Madam Attorney, if you don't mind, please, because I've heard, I had to get an education on this whole housing authority piece of it, because it was brand new to me. And quite frankly, Mr. Dave Marcus just sort of pointed out some wording that I had heard before, but I recently got an education on. When establishing a housing authority does not have the premise of low income. Some of the nomenclatures have changed to working class or working class people, but just because you're establishing an institution with regards to a housing authority does not automatically mean low income. But I've learned that later. Madam Attorney, I'll yield the floor to you.
You're correct, Mr. Mayor. And in fact, the term low-income housing is something that the IRS uses to describe what the state of Georgia calls affordable housing. So you may hear the terms workforce housing, affordable housing, used interchangeably with low-income housing. And all these bond deals that you've had come before you for these senior projects, they are low-income housing, but that doesn't necessarily mean what some people would associate that being like Section 8 vouchers or the DeKalb County Housing Authority that issues Section 8 vouchers through HAP contracts. That is not the only purpose of a housing authority. And so this is not the purpose of this ordinance, this resolution. State law actually allows you to activate a housing
Madam Attorney,
Yes, sir.
repeat that last part again.
Last part.
This is not intent for that.
This is not an attempt to create a HAP or a Section 8 type of housing situation within the city of Stonecrest. So, for example, you may have heard of the Atlanta Housing Authority or the DeKalb County Housing Authority that issues vouchers to low income, what we would normally consider people to be of low income. That is not the purpose of this resolution. The purpose of this resolution is to activate your housing authority, which you are able to do under state law, which is created so that you can participate in those bond deals and those financing deals in order to create revenue for the city.
There we go.
And Mr. Mayor, if I could just piggyback on what Attorney Preston said, I think it's important to note that the creation of the housing authority unto itself doesn't grant anyone special entitlement to a project. A project being considered for bonding, to be able to utilize the bonding component of this, they would still have to go through the same process. They'd have to be approved by the Development Authority or by this authority. And in some cases, if they would need to, if it was required for them to go through the zoning process, all those same requirements would still be in place. So it's not, nothing is guaranteed. If someone wants to present a project, the authority will still have the option of saying, no, we do not feel this is in the best interest of the city, or it is. And again, I think a lot of the focus in places where this has taken place previously has been on senior housing. And I think that's a lot of the focus in this case as well.
Excellent. Counsel, you have any questions for Madam Attorney? Yes, sir.
The second whereas, it says the members of the city council have been presented with compelling information for the need for a housing authority. Yeah, elaborate on that a little bit more.
This is tracking the language from your charter. I think, as we talked about at the last meeting, this is something that you don't have right now, and that there is a need for this within the city if you want to exercise your powers under the state law. And so that would be your compelling reason.
Is there anything pending that requires this to be put in place?
Not aware of any particular project that's pending. Michael, maybe.
I know we previously spoke with a project that had approached the county, and there may be consideration for them to do some, I think they approached us previously. I'm not sure if where exactly where the status of that project is, but it was one that the council, it went through rezoning, went through the whole process. Council approved the project. There was a component in there, they're trying to do something similar to this, going through the county's housing authority. I think it's fallen through or something's transpired in regards to it. So that may be the first opportunity that may be one of the first ones we have an opportunity to take a look at and explore as to whether or not we want to pursue that.
And it was a senior housing also. Yep.
And you were making the comparison, you saying that this is standard for all cities, all new cities are going this way with a housing authority?
All cities have the right under the state code to create this housing authority. So new cities and old cities and many cities have taken advantage of that opportunity to be able to promote this type of housing and to have that tool to both create housing in the cities and financially benefit from it.
Otherwise, we using the DeKalb County Housing Authority to get certain projects done?
Yes, sir, and DeKalb would retain them.
And DeKalb would benefit from it and not the city?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
The same project could occur right now, just Stonecrest would not get the money.
Question for you, who would be on this housing authority and who will establish that membership and how will that be structured?
The state law sets how they're appointed, and I believe the mayor appoints the members.
So where's a copy of the state law structure of it? Do we have a copy of that?
I could give you the OCGA provisions if you'd like to have them before you vote on it, but I don't have them off the top of my head. I didn't bring a copy with me. I apologize.
I would like to have them.
Yeah, I would conduct this the same way that we do with the other appointments. I take, because of my own preference, I would take recommendations from council and then, make the appointments from there. Last question, Madam City Attorney.
Yes, sir.
Is there any cost to this for us to,
There may be some cost if you did a deal,
right, but not to establish the,
not to establish it. Yes, sir.
I got a question. I didn't see this on the list of things needed for the transition. So I kind of just want to know kind of where this came from and who was suggesting this. And I haven't heard a lot of discussion about how we got to this point, but I did take a notice that it was not a part of our items of things to transition. So this is kind of coming off of the list of things we've been working on. So can you elaborate kind of how we got here, why we're here, why it's important to do it now versus later? Almost the same sentiment we've had with the historic preservation or the youth council. It's the questions why then why now? How did we get here?
But this is not something that you have to do during your transition period. You can decide not to do it, period, if you wanted to. I don't think it was on the transition list simply because it's not something that we have to do by the end of the transition. My understanding is it came up because, I guess, of developers, since they had deals falling with DeKalb County, and since it was a missed opportunity. But that's about all I know.
no, I brought it up. I brought it up because of the opportunity of the senior housing that we had a chance to do, and then they were going to take the same opportunity through DeKalb County, which would have avoided us from collecting fees. It would have avoided us from collecting revenues and still helping them get their project off the ground at the same time. That's how it came up.
Can you repeat for me again? Sound like I heard you say that the same type of development can happen in the city of Stonecrest. And we not take advantage, we would not have the opportunity to take advantage of the proceeds of those. But DeKalb County will, or did I mishear that?
If they went through the DeKalb County Housing Authority, then DeKalb County Housing Authority would get the fee.
So are you telling me that they are able to go through the DeKalb County Housing Authority to develop a property inside the city of Stonecrest?
Yes, sir.
Well,
Are they around?
It's a little bit more complicated than that.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt, but it is for the purpose of bonding the project. Anybody can come in, they can make application to for development, depending on, again, if they have the appropriate zoning. I think in this case, the the big mechanism, big piece as associated with the housing authority is directly associated with the bonding mechanism that's leveraged through the housing authority, whether that's done through the county or through the city. And the revenues associated with the allowance of the issuing the bonds, correct? Yes, sir.
Okay. It beginning to make sense to me. So basically what we're looking at is being able to take advantage of that particular arena of development in the city of Stonecrest. But primarily, these properties there is no zoning attachment necessarily with these type of properties. In other words, if they went through DeKalb County, built in the city of Stonecrest, and the zoning was already provided for that establishment, the only difference is Stonecrest still wouldn't get a say, so to say, because of the zoning has already been provided for. They would still be able to build that facility, but the bonds that are issued that went through DeKalb County, we would not be able to receive that because we don't have a housing authority.
You would not get the fee for issuing the bonds.
Correct.
That's correct. So this does not actually create anything. It just creates the opportunity to do something in the future if you wish to.
What's the range, or is there a range for those fees that the city will be getting for this?
I want to say it's like $100,000 per deal potentially. It's a substantial amount of money. I don't know if either of you have a better guess, but I think it ranges on the type of deal and the scope. But it's a substantial amount. Michael, do you think it's about?
I think it's about the range I've heard. I don't know. I think it can vary, but I don't.
And your cost generally would be if you had to hire bond counsel or pay for an opinion letter from a bond counsel, a lawyer.
Right, and the downside of this would be what? I mean, I'm hearing the upside, 100,000, receive the fees. We heard some of the citizens come forth and express their opinion about the housing authority and what we feel or what they feel that is. You guys have evidently put some study and thought into this. What would be the downside of that?
I'll go first. And that was my question as well. And I tell you, my first concern was, would there be liability on the side of the city in regards to the bond itself if there was issues with the bond? And I've been sure that's not the case, or would not be. So that was the one big component I was mostly concerned about. The downside could be if you have a project where the city has, or in this case, the housing authority has agreed to bond this project. They're obligated to pay the bond back. The developer is. So the city's not on the hook from a financial obligation. But if for some reason the project is not successful, like you get midway stream, what happened in 2008, 2009, we had a number of projects that kind of started and stopped. Certainly the impression of, well, why'd you support a project and it didn't materialize? I mean, so that always runs the risk of something like that happen. So from a perception standpoint, certainly, but beyond that, I mean, the biggest concern I had was if it obligated the city in any kind of financial way, or any kind of liability, and from what I've discovered and based on my questions, I haven't seen where that's the case. But it certainly does tie us to a particular project. But again, bear in mind that it's not a guarantee. Any entity can come and make the request as a housing authority. They have to meet their whatever criteria they have to meet, but the housing authority would still have the final authority to say yes or no to that particular project as whether or not they want to issue that bond. Okay, just for clarity for myself. So if there is a project and it defaults, will the city be held accountable for the bond that it supported? It will not.
No.
Who will be responsible for that?
I'll yield to the
Councilman
attorneys that know.
Turner, usually, it really is going to depend on how the transaction is structured, and typically it's structured so that these are special obligations. They're not supported by the city's full faith and credit, which means that none of the city's general revenues are at risk.
I'm going to say you have a bond counsel here, so I may just.
That's perfect.
Yeah. How about that? All right. Councilwoman?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Couple of questions for you, Attorney Preston. I've been reading about some of these developments, and I hear you loud and clear on money. And, you know, and I'm all for money, but all money may not be the kind of money we want, but I am all for money coming into the city. But I'm reading with some of these that it's discouraging some types of developments. I looked at some task force committees that were put together by other cities, and I looked at the good, the bad, the ugly, and in weighing that, what I have discovered is that my main concern here is that I don't think we've had enough citizens' engagement. I don't think we've had enough discussion from the citizens who live here. Citizens' engagement, what do I mean by that? What I mean is having community meetings or meetings where the citizens will have a voice. Let me tell you what Brookhaven did, I think with their affordable housing thing. And I just read in the newspaper just recently, they had a task force that ran for, I think, almost 2 years, collecting data and information from citizens and finding out what the people in Brookhaven wanted. I am sick and tired of different projects, good, bad, or ugly, being rammed down the people's throat, and the people are not getting an opportunity to just be heard. The task force would be from stakeholders and citizens all over the city or maybe outside the city, and they would review and evaluate the good, the bad, and the ugly of this, but no one have explained to me what is the rush. And why can't we engage the community more? The constituents of District 5 wants more discussion on this. They've asked me to ask the council to provide more. Once we engage in something like this, it's not like some of the other ordinances where we can just vote again the next meeting and reverse it. Anything that's dealing with zoning and infrastructures, you just can't reverse it that easy once they're in place.
All right, thank you, madam. So I'll follow this and then we'll move forward.
I got one more question.
Sorry about that.
Can you talk a little bit more about the third whereas? It's kind of where some of the, I've got a couple emails about this, but can you explain a little bit more about this third whereas? It says,
I think I messed up my papers. So
sorry. It talks about the members of the city council declare that there is a need for a
Housing authority.
as there's a shortage of safe and sanitary dwelling accommodations in the city available for persons of low income at rents they can afford. That statement almost contradicts everything that's been said about the housing authority.
Well, what that is the purpose of these bonds would be to provide housing for low-income people. So, but the low-income people, meaning that is, again, synonymous with the term affordable housing. So low-income housing is how the IRS describes what we call affordable housing or workforce housing. I wish they didn't use that term, but they do. And what you mean when you say affordable housing depends on the type of deal. So, for instance, some of those senior projects are going to have a family. So for a family and a senior deal, it's a little bit different, but it's based on what type of funding that they're getting, what type of bond it is, and there'll be a maximum amount of income that the person that can live there. So I know it's kind of hard to give you a good answer because it kind of depends on the project, but it could be a Section 8 project, but that's not what we're talking about today. We're talking about creating this so that you can issue bonds for low-income housing, which is a little bit different.
Would that opportunity exist on both ends of the spectrum, in a nutshell, though?
Potentially, it's the same body that would do it, but what we're talking about today is the intention to do the bond deals. And once again, if you want a further consideration on this, then that's certainly up to you all if that's what you want to do. We're just presenting the opportunity to you.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Madam Clerk. So you saying it with Ms. James, Madam City Attorney. Appreciate it. I'm going to move for deferral.
I second it.
All right. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Thank you, ma'am. All right. Go to number 3, resolution to establish the Stonecrest Overlay District Steering Committee. I don't know which Turner brother is on this, so I'll just say Councilman Clinton. Yeah, okay.
It is Rob Turner,
All right.
one of the Turner twins. I think we went through this last couple of sessions, and basically we brought forth Attorney Knight to sort of elaborate on exactly what it is that the overlay district, the City of Stonecrest area overlay district would comprise of, that committee, and what would we do, and the membership. There's only one change from the last conversation we had, and that change was to add another member, bringing the total number of members to 16. We're actually replacing a member with a new member. And other than that, it's the same as last time.
All right, Council?
Who are we replacing?
Yes, Mr. Knight, if you don't mind.
Sir, there actually is one other change, and it's an addition of a phrase to make clear that the term of this committee would begin January 1st
Right.
and would end January 31st. This is a very, very short-lived committee.
Mr. Knight, did you mean January 31st or December 31st?
I'm sorry, January 31st, sir.
You meant December.
It would be effective January 1st, the appointments, and the term of the appointments would end January 31st.
Okay, all right. So,
30 days?
30 days? Only 30 days?
Only
Oh, no,
30
no.
days.
right, it's a short, we're trying to get to the point real quick. It's not a long-term, 1-year thing. We're trying to make recommendations to the overlay changes in the overlay district, and we need to run with this.
I mean, we will be moving at lightning speed, sir,
So it's not a year.
if I can do anything about it.
Okay, then.
Yeah, you even said.
Hey, like, really? Oh, okay. Good deal. Okay, so, wow, that's impressive. All right, the pleasure of council.
Just a quick question for Councilman Clinton about the members. You say you're replacing. Who is the member that you're replacing?
Alan Carlisle, I believe is how you pronounce the last name, and he will be replaced with Bill Allen.
Okay. I think the last time we discussed it, my only concern was I was concerned about nepotism with the husband and wife team. Is that still part of this committee?
I don't know.
I think it was you and your wife both serving on the committee.
Right.
And I had a lot of concerns about that.
Right, and I understand your concern. However, this is a purely advisory committee. And again, I would say there are 16 members on this committee. It's a short-term committee, very focused group. So if there was voting, you were talking about 1/16 of an individual as opposed to a small council where you have 6 people. But if, Mr. Knight?
If I may clarify, I'll be on the committee representing my clients. The anticipation was that Edwina Clanton would be on the committee in her capacity as vice chair of the Stonecrest Business Alliance and representing the Business Alliance.
And I understand that, Mr. Knight. However, I have reviewed how these things are handled with some of the other cities, and it's the public trust that I'm concerned about. So I do have a concern about nepotism, and I don't want to set a pattern for it being acceptable, whether it's 30 days or 3 years.
Okay, we've heard from everybody?
Do we have the updated ordinance, or what is it,
Yes.
resolution?
She passed it out earlier.
Oh, yeah, she passed
Okay.
it.
We have a copy of it.
I don't have it.
It was that.
No, that's, oh, there it goes. Sorry, never mind. I got it. I'm on drugs.
Let me just opine. In
Councilman.
terms of the question of nepotism, my only concern was that it was full disclosure. So since it was disclosed, I'm okay with it. It's just that we, at some point, will have to establish a policy relative to that. So I think it points to that. But full disclosure, just if we're going by individual consent, it's okay with me.
All right.
And like I said, I just want to go back to, I just want us to start setting a pattern of, if we're going to do a policy for it, it doesn't hurt to start today. I don't need a policy to know that nepotism may not always serve the city's best interests, regardless of the length of time of the committee. And I am totally against nepotism on any of these committees.
Okay, we've heard from everybody.
Wait, sorry, one more question.
All right.
So are you saying that, I just want clarity, I'm not debating. Only the initial members are for 30 days, or?
The whole shooting
Under
match.
the terms section, it says that they'll serve for a succeeding term until the end of the city's fiscal year. And consecutive terms are permissible. And then we say the initial members are from January 1st to the 31st. So are we just saying that this initial group is for 30 days, and then anything beyond that will be longer, or just help me with that?
Well, the committee itself will dissolve in 30 days. So, I mean, that makes that, really no effect. But I think this is just the terminology that is generally used in putting together these type ordinances. So that's what the city allows for, even though we're not exploring that. So the entire committee will dissolve in 30 days. From January 1st to January 31st. And all recommendation will be made, and all those recommendations will be presented to and reviewed by the council and city management staff.
Are there any amendments to increase that time frame or timeline?
Well, see, the background here is that staff is already working on looking at the overlay district. We have some pressing concerns within the overlay district that need to be addressed right away. And so after 30 days, it's not going to, staff got to come up with a recommendation within the next 30 days anyway. So there's no provisions to extend, the terms.
Right, okay.
If the motion is made, can we just make sure that it's clear? Because the way I'm reading it, and if anyone else goes back to read it, and again, I'm not debating it, the issue, I'm just saying it leaves the impression that only the initial members are here for 30 days, and that the availability for anything else beyond that exists. So if that's not the intention, especially under the terms section.
So I'll take the motion from you, City Council. You brought, state it however you feel comfortable.
So, again, you say it's under the terms?
It's under terms, section 4.
Maybe our attorneys can weigh in, or at least tell me don't worry about it or something, because it just leaves the impression that it's more than just 30 days.
What's your pleasure, Mr. City Attorney?
I don't think anybody feels strongly about the language the way it's currently written. And so to the extent it clarifies the issue, then you can.
Speak in the mic.
I'm sorry. I don't think anybody feels strongly about that language that Ms. Cobble is referencing. Like Ms. Clanton said, it just might be, just surplusage language that doesn't really affect fundamentally what the commission is going to do. They're going to dissolve in 30 days. So if nobody's wedded to that language, why don't we just remove the language as opposed to debating the language?
Certainly.
All right. Excellent. So, having said that, I'm going to put this back on Councilman Clanton to make the motion.
Mr. Mayor, I offer a motion that we adopt the ordinance with the removal of the terms.
All right, properly moved and properly second. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
All opposed?
Nay.
All right, passes 5-1. Okay, the ordinance setting work session for city council meeting dates, times. We have taken in a lot of considerations with regards to how we want to do this, and this is what I'm hearing from the constituents and council and staff. Nobody wants to have any more morning meetings. Period. So that means that meetings will move to the evenings. based on as many schedules that we could put together, and council, I'm leaving this option up to you all today so that we can make a decision on it. The available days are second and fourth Mondays, or second and fourth, or was it, Mr. City Manager, was it?
First and third.
First and, yeah,
Currently first and third. You were considering second and fourth from our last conversation.
right, second and fourth Mondays instead of first and third Mondays.
Right.
And in consideration for people that work, that's on the council, consideration per son, starting at 6, like we've been doing, 6 to 7 for work session, and then 7 on for city council meeting. So second and fourth Mondays for work session and council, starting at 6 o'clock for work session, 7 o'clock for,
Sorry, say that again. Second.
yeah, second and fourth Monday, exactly. So second and fourth Monday. And then starting at 6, right?
Are we reversing it like at work session 1?
No, we're gonna keep it straight.
Okay.
Yeah, so work session, then council. Work session, then council. Because quite frankly, I had to concentrate on which day was what for when we were flippity floppity. So I'd rather just know in my mind it's second and fourth Mondays, work session at 6, council meeting at 7.
Starting the 14th?
That's why I said earlier, what date would that be, Councilwoman? Because I
The
have my
14th
calendar
is,
down.
Mr. Mayor, the 14th is the second Monday in January. First Monday is the 7th. Second Monday is the 14th, so, and then the fourth Monday.
Is it 28th?
Yes.
Yes. So yeah, starting on the 14th, January 14th.
Mr. Mayor?
This is just the first read of the ordinance, that's what I
Okay.
was saying. This is just the first read, so you can't adopt it tonight.
All right, so then how do we get to the second read to be able to adopt it?
Well,
We're
even,
going to call for a special call meeting?
You can, yeah, we were just discussing that. You can do a special call meeting, or you could leave the January meeting where it is. Because is it currently scheduled for January the
January 2nd.
So you could do it that, and then your schedule will become effective immediately thereafter.
Okay.
Which,
And then it could take the 14th.
3 meetings.
I'm sorry?
Then it could take the 14th,
Yes.
right? Okay.
It would
Council, how y'all feel about that?
meetings,
Give us
yeah.
3 meetings.
Yeah, it'll be 3 meetings in January.
Yeah. That's fine. It's just that I think we got real lucky tonight that you had a
So you could.
work session less than an hour, but this puts every work session at no more than an hour. Is that going to be sufficient?
We've been doing that for a year and a half.
No.
Every once in a while,
Not
every once in a while, we go over.
Except for the daytime.
except for Wednesdays.
Wednesday.
Yeah, it's reversed, so the work sessions can go on unended almost. But that's just my concern. Is an hour enough for every session?
I mean,
Well,
if we,
I'll tell you what my concern.
You can make it enough. No, I'm kidding. I'm kidding.
yes, ma'am.
Would the morning meetings allow me, and it's not about me, but it allows me time to get here for the full meeting versus the evenings, even if it's 5 or 6 o'clock, I'm racing from downtown to get here. So if we're making work sessions only an hour every meeting, there's a likelihood that I would miss quite a few of every work session. If I get caught in any traffic or anything, it doesn't give any flexibility for a longer work session. So at least I know some days, at least I know on Wednesday mornings, I'm here for everything because I'm not fighting to come from downtown. But I say that because the resolution says 5 o'clock. So And it says first and
You'll
third.
never make it at 5.
No, no, I won't. Which is
Exactly.
why, when I first saw it, I said, well, it doesn't matter if it's first and third or second and fourth. I ain't gonna make it at 5 o'clock, no way.
Okay.
But so now it looks like we're entertaining second and fourth, and then 6 o'clock versus 5 o'clock. So it's completely different than what's in the
Okay.
council paperwork. So I just want to make sure I know what we're doing. Since
So-
it's not the same as what we're talking about.
So second and fourth. Second and fourth.
Second and fourth.
All right. And then 6 p.m.
And are we still keeping the zoning things on certain?
It's funny you mention that. That's why we did the Monday dance. Because we got the certain Tuesdays for zoning. And all of this was in preparation of all considerations. The constituents first, then council. Actually, then we were last consideration. It was staff next.
Right.
Then council. And we're working the devil out of Brenda and Michael, so.
Let me ask you this. In the event that we have a work session scheduled for 1 hour,
Okay.
and you only get through half of the work session, is it appropriate to add it after the council meeting to finish the work session? Or is that too much piecemeal?
No, you absolutely can.
After the 7 p.m. work council meeting?
I would rather do that, Councilman, than be 6 to 8 in stone and then, no, that is a really good idea.
Yeah, as long as it's not a meeting that we have planning and zoning on, because then we'll be here from 11 o'clock to 3 in the morning.
Well, now since we have both solid days, we don't have to load up all the, hearings on one council meeting, exactly. Because we were doing that because of the evening schedule, just one evening schedule. Yeah.
And it's better for staff to be here after work hours, not during work hours?
For those 2 days.
I would imagine it would be easier for them to be in this meeting while they're on the clock
Well, speak for yourself.
versus staying after.
They got this. Don't get Brenda all lathered up now. Just let this go. Let this go.
Pleasure of the mayor and council.
Okay. So for clarity, second and fourth, Mondays, 6 p.m. work session, 7 p.m. council meeting. In the event that we need extra time for a work session, depending on the schedule, then after council meeting for that. Okay? This classified as first read? Very good. Yes.
This will be the first read.
All right. So read. All right, council. Thank you. Okay.
Everybody has the new one, right?
Oh, here we go. There you go. Very good. Very good. Very good.
Contaminated.
All right. And for clarity, council, so we'll still keep the January 3rd. Second. Screw it up right off the rip. January 2nd council meeting, and then we'll do the second read at January 2nd council meeting. Very good. Okay. And that is that daytime or? That's the daytime meeting? Yeah, that's Wednesday, daytime. Okay. All right, very good. Last one then. All right.
So do we have 3 meetings in January?
Say again, Councilwoman?
What's the first meeting date in January?
The second.
Oh, okay.
Yep.
Thank you.
The second. All right. Okay, number 5, the resolution to establish a Stonecrest Film Committee.
Mayor and council, this is the resolution that was discussed at the last work session. And what we're doing here is looking to formalize the creation of the Film Commission was established back a number of months ago, but it's never been formalized by way of a resolution and to put some structure behind this. Our attorney's been working on putting together, crafting this in somewhat the same manner that we currently have our education committee. We see a lot of the same structure with this committee. And again, this is the Film and Entertainment Committee. The primary functions and duties will be to study and research matters of interest and import related to the film and entertainment industry, as such matters relate to the city, and may from time to time offer written recommendations to the city council after the conclusion of such study and research. Members must attend 2/3 of the Film and Entertainment Committee meetings in a calendar year. Failure to do so warrants removal from the committee. And again, you see the membership requirements. The terms. Each Film and Entertainment Committee member shall serve until the succeeding end of the city's fiscal year. Consecutive terms are permissible. At this time, in speaking with Councilman Rob Turner, if you scroll down to the bottom, right now, the initial members are Councilman Rob Turner and the city manager or designee as ex officio, and that would likely be, at least initially, would be our economic development manager, Ms. Sabrina Wright. We didn't have other names. It's my understanding that Councilman
I have
Turner may
those
some
names, but I'm still waiting from Councilwoman Odama to give me the last one.
I sent it to you.
Did you?
Kenneth Reeves.
Okay, I didn't get it. Okay.
Yeah, I sent it to you.
Well, if you want to read the names, and the clerk can take those names down now, then we can kind of formalize this, and we'll be done at that point.
All right, just 1 minute. Just 1 second. Okay, for District 1, we have Ms. Patrice DeChart. What's that? Pat D. Pat D. And I have her information. Pat D for District 1.
Supply me with that list with the correct. Right.
Yes, I will do that. District 2, we have Ms. Verda Watson. District 3, we have Mr. Todd Brown. District 4, we have Ms. Stacy Thibodeau. And District 5, we have Mr. Kenneth Reeves.
So that would establish the committee itself, the structure of the committee, and the initial members, as stated.
Hey, just a quick question. Months back, when we actually initiated this committee, I was told that these committee members were already in place. So what happened to those? Because I even asked to serve on that committee, and I was told that the committee was already in formation. So what happened to that committee? And are we starting this over with the members? And then let me just add, we've voted or resolved for several committees, and like the Education Committee, and we're not getting any updates. So maybe you can speak to that either now or another date. What's the purpose of the committee, and are they giving updates to the council?
They certainly can. I mean, they serve at the pleasure of, again, as well, of the council for the intent of being able to provide information. If that's something, we can certainly reach out to the chairs of any committee that the council would like to hear from and have them to come in. I don't know if it's mandated in the resolution that they have to. I think certainly that's probably the understanding, but if there's a committee that the council would like to come in and have them provide an update to, certainly upon request, we can certainly reach out to them and have them do.
I just want to recommend that if we're going to institute a committee, we can be more effective if the committee provide us with quarterly, annual, some type of update on what the committee is doing, so that if a council member wants to, or a citizen or somebody, who can bring some value to that committee. You can't bring value to something if you don't know what the committee is doing.
Yeah, between that and or attending their meetings, certainly, I think they meet on education committee.
Well, we have
they meet on a regular basis.
We have the Education Committee, we got the Budget Committee, we had the Film Committee, and I can't think of the Arabia Mountain, or whatever. What I'm trying to say, it doesn't make sense to form committees if we're not going to get updates on what's happening to see the progress and the growth of the committees.
Let me just say something in reference to the first statement she made concerning the people that were involved with the first, committee. That was a non-official group of people who were in the industry who were helping to develop the Film Commission, because we needed infrastructure in place. And we needed people who had a knowledge base, also had connections and responsibilities and are working in the industry to get that set up so that we can go forth and be established as a Film Commission. So we needed people to come and give us some kind of insight and some kind of understanding. So really they were a non-official advisory board. And these people still will be involved in a sense because we need their expertise, we need their commitments, and we need their contacts. So those people are still there. Now, in reference to the Film Commission, this is the structure of it. This is the official city structure of it, governmental structure of it. And that's what we're doing tonight to do that.
Committee. Yeah, not commission in this case.
Committee. What's the difference?
I don't know.
Okay.
They said there was a difference. I'm
Okay,
not
I
sure
just
what
want to
it is.
find out.
I said commission initially, they said no, it needs to be committee, so.
Okay, fine. It doesn't matter.
Committee it is.
Just so we're effective and we're getting things done.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Okay. You got, Madam Clerk, you got the names? Yes. All right. Do we need to take an official vote?
Yes, sir.
All right. Councilman?
I make a motion that we accept the Stonecrest Film and Entertainment Committee.
Second?
All right. Properly moved. And second. Any further discussion?
Can I make a counter motion?
You can make a substitute motion.
Substitute motion? That we accept the film committee with the names as designated, but that we add that we receive reasonable updates, either monthly or quarterly updates from the committee.
This committee will be structured like every other committee, and we'll be producing that information to the council as necessary and as requested.
So the substitute motion was made. For it to be effective, it has to be a second. Seeing none, goes back to the original motion. Discussion on the original motion. What I'm trying to do, council and folks in the audience, is that every appointee is appointee of the mayor. What I like to do with council, and the example I want to use here with Councilman Rob Turner, is that I know he is a subject matter expert in this arena. And I wanted him to pick the people that he wants to have on the committee. Make sure we get it right here, because he knows what he's doing. So I don't manage the process in a way that I step in and stick my finger in it, because it's unnecessary. But I just want to point out the trust I have for you with regards to where we're going with this, because I know I know where we're going and what you're capable of doing. So that's the ending of the discussion part of it. Any further discussion? Seeing none. All in favor? Aye. All opposed? All right. Thank you. Committee passes. Number 6, an ordinance for the creation of Stonecrest Youth Council.
This ordinance will provide the city with the opportunity to partner with the youth in the city of Stonecrest. I have received a number of inquiries from parents as well as students, and I believe I forwarded to the council members a list of letters from students at Wilson Academy. Many of them are in favor of a youth council for the city of Stonecrest. I believe we've sent out several emails to all council members asking if they had any questions or concerns about the youth council. The template that we use to form this council have already been vetted by Georgia Municipal Association. The template we used is from the city of Stockbridge. Most of everything in the ordinance is a clone of what's already happening with cities across the state of Georgia. There's in my opinion, there's little to no risk. The people who are working with these youths will be background checked by the DeKalb County Police Department. Most of them work in education, or they work with a youth nonprofit. This is an opportunity. I don't understand how we can build a great world-class city and not include the youth and have the youth at the table. The youth have already voiced their opinion that they would like to be at the table. This is a grand opportunity. We were hoping to get this ordinance passed before the mayor's conference, which is in January, so that the mayor can actually recognize the youth in the city of Stonecrest. This initiative was initially a private initiative, and we thought it would function better if it was a citywide initiative. We actually have a nonprofit who's ready to work with the youth, but we took it from the nonprofit arena to the city. And I have not received any questions from the council members. I did ask for names of individuals that they would like to have serve on this advisory committee. And someone had a question about when is the right time to pass a youth ordinance. And my answer to that is yesterday. And Stonecrest need a youth council, and I think it's bad politics when we need a youth council and we play politics over what's best for our young people. I don't know if anyone looked at the crime statistics and the need for youth diversion programs, but this will also act as a diversion program of diverting our youth away from things that are horrible. Stonecrest have a problem with teenagers committing crime in this city. And to me, this is not something that we need to ponder for another 3 to 4 months. We've been pondering this ordinance for almost 6 months. And I can't understand why the politics precede good policy. And good policy is, what kind of city would we be if we don't look out for the youth? And yes, a nonprofit can do what we can do, and they can do it in a different way. But why won't the city open up the opportunity for the youth to shine in January at the mayor's conference, for the city to take the necessary steps to let the youth know, not only do we care about you, but we're going to give you a seat at the table with the council. And I'll entertain any questions that anyone have. I know that Ms. Cobble is the youngest member on this council. I have asked her to serve as one of the advisory members, and she has graciously accepted. Rob Turner, whose wife is a school board member over this district, has graciously supported this legislation. And I would hope that tonight that the council can put aside our differences, whatever they may be, and do what's in the best interest of the children. And I got a list of letters. I am going to read one of them, but I'd like to open up the floor for the council members who have some concerns about voting on this tonight. I'd like to open it up and see if I can answer your questions.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The floor is open for council or any questions.
Let me add one thing, Mr. Mayor, if I may. I initially, when I introduced this legislation, I initially asked for a budget for a 2018 budget, which we were not able to grant a budget to get this program started. And then I asked for a budget for 2019. And then I came back and I said, okay, if you can't give us not even $100 or not even $1,000 or $10,000 for the youth for 2018 or for 2019, then I said, I have Stonecrest business owners who have told me I'm ready to support it. I'll sponsor it. So even if you're concerned about the money, which to me is a shame because we should be able to put something into our youth, but let's give the benefit of the doubt. If you don't want to fund it, council, then please go ahead and pass the ordinance and let the private stakeholders and the citizens fund it. But I think that good policy is passing this ordinance.
Council?
Mr. Mayor?
Yes, sir.
This was just before us a few months ago, and my position is unchanged. And that is that we definitely need a youth council, but I don't see how we are ready to address it now. We're using contract employees who would, if they're going to really represent the city, they're going to have to be involved. And I think we need to wait on this one until we're ready to deal with our young people properly, that we not take on something that we can start and not know if we're going to be able to sustain it. So I am the same position to wait a little longer before we put this in place.
Okay. Other comments? All right, then I'll take a motion from approval.
Mr. Mayor, I make a motion to defer to try to satisfy Councilman Turner's concern because for clarity for the record, these programs, I want the audience to know.
That's your motion. That's your motion. Then you can make comment. What's your motion?
I'm going to make a motion to defer.
All right.
Second.
Motion to defer and properly second. Now, discussion. Councilwoman?
I want to address Councilman Clanton's concern. You're on my mind too. Councilman George Turner's concern is that what I'm asking for, it's already in place in other cities. And actually, it's kind of embarrassing to me that they have passed some of these. It was a no-brainer for some cities. They didn't debate it as hard as we are debating it, and they have less crime. Some of these cities have less issues with the youth than we do, and yet they have found the need to pass this. Again, the individuals working with the youth, I talked to GMA, we've not had one incident with these types of programs. And in reality, I think it's bad politics to not pass this, and no one has given me a good sound reason why Stonecrest can't pass a youth council. And these individuals that work with the youth, they are already background checked by the DeKalb County Police Department. I don't know what else George Turner wants. I think it's important for us to support these young people. And there's nothing that we've passed at any point in time that comes with zero risk. Nothing. There's nothing that we've done with no risk. And yes, there's always some risk with everything. But I think the council needs to stop playing bad politics and get on board with the young people and pass this ordinance.
Okay. Any further discussion? Been properly moved and second. All in favor for the deferral?
Aye.
All opposed? So deferred. Number 7. The ordinance to creation of Stonecrest Youth Council Advisory Committee. Councilwoman?
And Mr. Mayor, same thing. I want to make a deferral because the two of these need to pass simultaneously like other cities are doing it. And so I would make a deferral that we defer this as well and bring the two up again at the next council meeting.
All right. I'll take that motion from you.
I make a motion that we defer the Stonecrest Youth Council Advisory Committee to the next Stonecrest meeting of January 2nd, I believe.
Second.
Probably moved in second. Any further discussion? Seeing none. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed?
Nay.
All right.
Nay.
Number 8, an ordinance for the creation of historic cultural landmarks.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Again, I want to thank Ms. Cardenas for her public comments earlier, and she was absolutely right. And I believe if Ms. Attorney Preston wants to address some of Attorney Bernard Knight's concerns, which are unfounded in what we're trying to create here, this legislation will actually help Attorney Knight's clients. It would be an asset to his clients and his stakeholders. But as has been said eloquently by Mira, I don't know if I can even say it better. This will enable the legislation to begin the process to preserve the historic infrastructures and the green space. Now, we just experienced a demolition of a infrastructure that was deemed historic. If we had had this piece of legislation in place, we would have known that that particular building was historic. And she's absolutely right. I have spoken to several people, including the EPA, the Conservation Board, and historic districts are created by the council. And this legislation will give us the opportunity to create historic districts. And let me give some examples. With the Flat Rock Archives, the Flat Rock Church, the Klondike Historic Association, Arabian Mountain, and the list goes on. Waters Farm, we're rich in green space. Green space is the only thing that we have in Stonecrest that can't close its doors unless an act of God pick up that mountain and move it. Other than that, if it is the best asset that we have in Stonecrest, we need to preserve it. And preservation is what this ordinance is about, preserving it. But then taking it a step further, if anyone up here have followed the links and did the research, you'll find that there's a lot of federal funding from the EPA and from other agencies that are going back to the federal government because they are asking that cities have this legislation in place before the city can actually reach out and apply for the funding. And I don't think anyone in here can tell me that Flat Rock Archives cannot use a facelift. This legislation would bring in thousands, not thousands, let me be correct. It would bring in millions of dollars for Mr. Waits, who's sitting out there in the audience, and any council who can give me a good reason why we can't go forward with this legislation to rebuild and protect Flat Rock Archives, to protect the Arabian Mountain and all the beautiful trails we have. That's what it does. And yes, I am in favor of a historic district. That's the only thing that Stonecrest have that we can't wake up tomorrow and say they've closed their doors and moved to another city. You know why? Only an act of God can pick up the mountain and move it. And if you don't want to protect your most valuable asset that can drive billions of dollars come into Georgia every year from tourism. I've done the math on it, and we are missing. It's a disgrace to these organizations that are sitting here today for you to play politics again, and I'm gonna say bad politics, with something that can help the city. There's nothing bad in this legislation. And if it's bad, you know what? 4 votes can reverse it. But give it a chance. And I would like for the council to consider passing, not to consider, I'd like for the council to pass this legislation unanimously because it is for the good of the city of Stonecrest.
Okay, council. Is there a motion?
Mr. Mayor, I hate to interrupt, but it's
Yes.
my understanding, talking to the attorneys, that this actually constitutes the first read. I know it's been heard previously, but I think it still constitutes a first read this evening. Is that correct? Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it requires 2 reads.
And I will tell you, I know staff we've received them. We have been going through the vetting process. I think there's still we're in the process of formulating some of our question and comments, but we have begun our staff vetting process.
Okay. Recognize as so read, first read, or for the first read. Second read, January 2nd. All right. Any further questions?
Mr. Mayor, if I may, I want the council to know that I am available to hold a meeting with each one of you, and we can actually flush out your specific concerns. We can work with the city manager, and Attorney Preston have put countless hours into this legislation, and I believe she can even address it if she wants to. But she and I have spoken and went back and forth. We've researched the funding, the links, and so everything that I've shared with you this evening, it's been vetted by our lawyer.
Mr. Mayor, if I may.
Yes, sir.
The one thing I heard earlier from Mira, as well as Attorney Knight, And from my studies and from following the links and from reading and a historic district is way more complicated than pass the bill and this will happen. Mira herself said that even if we had that bill passed, it would not address the issue. It is a tool, I think is how you described it once, that we can pull off the shelf, but without actually, that will allow us to convene a committee or a commission that would then address historic districts, historic places or parks or monuments and the likes. And my study has shown in not all cases is that a good thing. For one thing, you have to decide what you're talking about when you're talking about historic designations by a committee. You're leaving that up to a committee to say what's historic. It's not automatic. It's not like automatically the two buildings, for instance, that were torn down would automatically been designated as historic. So there is a process and a procedure. That process and procedure costs money, which is not necessarily the bigger issue, but it also calls for a level of understanding that council, I think, going forward, as we look backwards, we need to understand the fullness of what we're talking about and what we're promoting. I understand, I don't want to say emotional, but convictions about particular issues. But those convictions should be spreaded with factual information that's easily accessible, that makes sense for the entire community. For instance, it may very well be favorable to Mr. Waits, but for a neighbor, if we designated that area as a historic district, that neighbor might not find that favorable when he get ready to make repairs to his home that we now say has to be done with a certain type of material from a certain type of area. Sometimes this prices people out of the market. So there's a lot to be considered. The one thing that both Mira and Bernie Knight said was that it would be prudent of us to put some study into this and to look into what would be the proper procedure and see what it would cost us down the road. We don't want to make decisions based on conviction alone. We want to make it based on some facts, and we have the time, we have the opportunity, and we should have the willingness to go forward and to approach this issue from that way. That way we don't make the mistakes of having to reverse it, as Councilwoman Adoma alluded to, why should we do that when we have the opportunity to study this out? And I think that we have a lot of people within the community and without the community that can help and can assist us to understand the fullness of this particular issue. So I would be in favor of a study, I do think that's needed. And, with all due respect, I do not believe that Councilwoman Adoma, and I think she would tell you this, is a subject matter expert when it comes to historic district. We have access to the same set of facts, but I think we do need to bring subject matter experts to the table and see how this can best benefit the entire city and how we can move forward with it. I would be 100% agreeable to that.
If I can add that state law was taken into consideration when the ordinance was prepared, and the research have already been done, and I was just selected by the Atlanta Regional Commission to serve on, they're putting together a regional task force to be able to, and they're going to be working with cities who have this legislation. And let me add that this legislation actually have already been passed by the other new city who formed at the same time that Stonecrest formed. Now, the city of South Fulton have passed this. Matter of fact, I spoke with their council people, and that's where I got the idea from. They've already passed it. It's on their website. It's working. And so to Mr. Clanton's concern, the research has been done. It's already been done. And it's already been proven that the funding can come in and benefit. And the city does have the authority and the jurisdiction to designate historic districts. If we can't do it, why are we going to count on somebody else to designate what we think is historic? The state defines. Matter of fact, I believe when I spoke with Attorney Preston, she told me that the state have already defined what's historic. So if it's already defined, why are we going to do another study and waste our hard-earned taxpayer dollars studying something that we already have the answer to? And no, it's not emotion. This is not emotion. This is facts. This is good politics over bad politics. Pass the ordinance, council. It needs to pass.
Anybody else?
Just briefly.
Sir.
This is a request for a commission, and sometimes you have commission, you have authorities, and you have committees. Councilman Clanton mentioned committee on this matter, and I'm looking at what just happened with the 2 buildings that were taken down, and it was a matter of us not being alerted to what was going on. I think that is something that we perhaps can put in place through other methods, that we will be alerted to anything that's being demolished, and we can make a decision whether or not it is a good move or not. And a lot of what we're trying to accomplish, sometimes you can over-legislate it and handcuff yourself on some things. So we need to make sure that before we do it, that we're not causing that to happen. And we need to decide if it's going to be a committee, a commission, or an authority. Because when you go with a commission has broad powers that a committee does not have. And there are some obligations that come along with that the city would be bound to support. And it might not work in our best favor. And make one thing perfectly clear, let me make it clear. I am in favor of supporting and protecting our historic buildings, facilities, and landmarks, 100%. But let's do it the right way.
All right, thank you. Second, first reading, so noted. Number 9, the resolution for Stonecrest City Center negotiation. Folks, we have an opportunity here as council, as citizens, for mayor and council to enter into a negotiation with AFI, Allen Family Investments, for the acquisition, lease, or lease purchase of the Target building for the purposes of public safety and Parks and Rec and the like, to make sure that we have an opportunity to spend the correct amount of designated money in the designated area for that purposable building. So what we've put together here is a resolution for a team of people to negotiate with AFI, and that committee would consist of myself, Councilwoman Cobble, City Manager Mr. Harris, Robert Scott, and Attorney Winston Denmark. What this does is allows us to do several things. One is that while we are negotiating with AFI, this gives us some more opportunity to find out some things that we've been looking at with regards to repurposing the building and what it would cost. Mainly, as I had mentioned earlier, starting with public safety, because DeKalb County is extremely interested in moving into that building from the East Precinct. We've been speaking with them for months now. Second, it could include their training center. Third, for the affinity of the recreation lovers that are up here, possibly inside golf with regards to that. One of the things I know that Councilman Rob Turner and I have been working on is to drawing actual film companies with a film stage opportunity inside. So while we're negotiating these opportunities, and last but not least, Councilman George Turner, one of the things that stopped a post office from coming to Stonecrest was the lack of a facility. Now we would have an opportunity to actually have our own post office in the same place. So what we've deemed this as is the Stonecrest City Center. And what this team will do, we'll start to negotiate from there and see if we can move forward and bring back to council an opportunity to make this happen. So, council, any questions? Yes, sir.
Just looking at the members, I understand the mayor's ex officio on all committees. Does the mayor serve on the committee as a member of, just a regular member?
I can serve on the minute.
Okay. I just didn't know whether or not that was part of the charter or not.
Yeah.
Legal?
Need to double check. I think the city code.
I'm not aware that the mayor is ineligible for service on
Exactly.
on committees. I can certainly double check that, but as I sit here right now, I am not aware that the mayor is disqualified from serving on council committees or committees established by the council.
And we had discussions on bringing in subject matter experts, and I know some of these members, I know them, and I know that they're very good at what they do. But is this a independent body that can give us advice on this matter? Because this is no small undertaking.
Well, let's look at the members. You have your mayor. I'm proficient in several areas. Councilwoman Cobble, who I consider probably the smartest of us all with regards to finance. What she doesn't know, she has access to our special bond person that's sitting over here. You have City Manager Michael Harris, who has done SPLOST several times before. Mr. Scott, I thought I saw Robert Scott in the room. There he is. He is our local resident real estate expert who put together our deal here and has 30 years of commercial real estate experience. And we have Attorney Denmark and access to his staff.
Not discounting, any other experts in the room. A reputable firm was something that I thought would probably work better. We'll put their reputation on the line for giving us advice on a matter involving this much city funds.
So I am going to point to Mr. Robert Scott, who is a very reputable firm.
Right.
It represents as reputable firm commercially as you can get. So we needed a person that knew the particulars, not only in our market, but also about commercial real estate and negotiations.
So does he come as a firm and Mr. Denmark's legal firm is coming, or are they coming as individual?
Well, I think they come as their firms. They have access to, unless you want to call them up here and grill them one-on-one about what they know and where they're going.
I'll just say this: whenever you get me, you get all the expertise in my office.
That's what I thought.
That's what I want to hear. Yeah.
There you go.
How about you?
And the big cat. You get the big cat.
Mr. Mayor, Turner, were you done? Mr. Mayor, I just have one question. Is there a time frame or a timeline in regards to negotiation efforts?
I kind of want to leave that up to the committee and come back to council, because we want to move on this, I think, in reasonable form. All right. Okay, I'll take a motion for the approval of the resolution.
Mr. Mayor, I motion that we approve the resolution as written.
Second.
Properly moved in second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Resolution passes. Thank you, council. Mr. City Manager.
I got something to say. It's really brief. There's been a couple comments made in regards to the recent demolition that took place, and I do want to assure both the council and the citizens that, since that time, there have been steps taken in reference to that, most notably the creation of a historic GIS layer. Early on, upon the city's first initial inception, that was one of the issues that the council was concerned with about some of the blighted structures that we have within our communities. And so we have taken a rather aggressive approach at trying to have those areas addressed. And, so I think as we step back from this and look at the process, and we're in the process of kind of developing the process as well, we've been working with Ms. Cardenas as well. In fact, we had one case recently where a location had been identified, that's been identified as blighted, a tree had fallen through the structure. And upon doing the research, came to find out that it was actually listed as a historic structure. So we were able to work with that property owner, put them in contact with Ms. Cardenas. And so they're working at trying to see what they can come up with as we start the process of forming putting the process in place. So again, just wanted to assure the council and the citizens that, we're very much aware of this issue and we're taking steps to make sure to mitigate it from ever happening again. Beyond that, that's it.
Excellent. Madam and Mr. City Attorney.
I don't have anything to say at this point.
Okay. Let's see. Oh, she's not in. We'll start with Ms. Caldwell. Yeah. All right. Councilman.
Just like to wish everybody a wonderful Merry Christmas and a safe and Happy New Year. Thank you.
Excellent. JC.
Happy holidays, everybody.
It's Merry Christmas, everybody. I'll be safe.
All right. I don't know what's happening with Scott, but I'll mention a couple of things. One is that, how about everybody turn around and give my lovely bride a hand here? She's in the back. She's just who takes care of the mayor. That's right. That's Mrs. Claus.
That's our first lady.
That's right. That's our first lady. They corrected me up here. Our first lady. And I want you all to know that I've been in, I know for some of you it'll be sad, but I've been in good hands. everything is turning out fairly well, really well, as a matter of fact. I'm gonna do this politically. I'm gonna walk the line, Mr. City Attorney. I have an event on this Thursday at 7 p.m. No, from 5 to 8 p.m. this Thursday at the Startup Factory. There may or may not be hors d'oeuvres. I think there will be. There will be. We're going to celebrate a couple of three things. Our just being on this side of the grass, and also talk about the future and where we're going. And there may or may not be a collection period, but we'll talk about that later unofficially. We don't do that up here. We can't do that. And the last thing is that, I'm gonna yield to Councilwoman Odomo. She's back, and then I'll make the last announcement.
What are we doing?
Your public comments.
Oh, my public comments. Okay, thank you, Mr.
Hold until
Mayor.
you see there, Jack.
Oh, okay, great. I just want to let everyone know that my consulting firm just got HubZone certification, and that means a lot for the city of Stonecrest. I will be working with lots and lots of small business owners, helping them get their certifications. 99% of all the businesses are small businesses. The other thing is my TV program, Touring Stonecrest District 5, will launch in January. We have Chick-fil-A just sent over some documents for a $600,000 advertising sponsorship. The entire program will focus on all the beautiful green space and infrastructure that's located in District 5, also highlighting the beautiful homes and the Allen Institute, anything in District 5 that we want to highlight for tourism will be on the TV show. Also, I got an email from the Travel Channel and from Disney, and they are interested in that mountain. They want to talk more about promoting our mountain. So that's all good news for tourism.
Oh, thank you, Councilwoman. Okay, last but not least, I have a bit of a, in my book, sad news anyway. I have received I'm going to say retirement letter from our city attorney, Tom Curry. He'll no longer be working with us. And Tom's going to do some other things. But we were fortunate enough to, as we this made a point earlier, actually, when Mr. Denmark, Attorney Denmark said, you know, when you have them, you have their firm. So when we have our appointment of the city attorneys, we have their firm. So we still have in capable hands of Fincher Denmark. Mr. Denmark will take the lead along with his firm, and also we have, of course, access to our wonderful city attorney still from Coleman Talley. But Mr. Curry will no longer be here with regards to his services here at Stonecrest, but the firm will be. And we wish Attorney Curry Godspeed on the things that he's looking at doing. I want to say something about Tom. Tom was and is an eloquent man. He stood by us for 5 years when nobody else would help us. When he had an opportunity to spend hundreds of legal hours as Miss Emanuel and Mr. Knight and Mr. Thibodeau in that team that we put together early on, Mr. Joyner, that will tell you he spent more time with his firm at risk helping get this city off the ground when nobody else would take us on. So we owe that man a debt of gratitude. We owe him the grace and style that it is with regards to how he has departed this place and the help and assistance that he's given us over many, many years in our short existence, which is really 5 years if you count when we first got started. So next time we see him, next time he's out, make sure you congratulate him and give him the proper respect and due that he's deserved. With that, I'll take adjournment for the meeting. So moved.
Second.
And second. All in favor? Aye. Happy holidays, folks.